We identified two sets of attacks that we attributed to a North Korean APT called the Andariel group. These two attacks happened across Europe and South Korea. In the first attack, the threat actor went after anti-money laundering documents, and this underscores North Korea's relentless money laundering activities to evade international sanctions. And in the second attack, the threat actor compromised a South Korean enterprise resource planning software, which they had targeted before in 2017 and almost certainly again in 2024, which tells us that some of the campaigns that Andariel runs are quite persistent. Through these two attacks and the staging server we found linked to Andariel, we were able to discover several new malware tools and TTPs that the threat actor seems to be using in their latest arsenal. This included new remote access Trojans, such as Starshell Rat, Gopher Rat, and Jealous Rat, as well as their usage of Petite Potato and the Bring Your Own Vulnerable Driver technique to kill AV or EDR products. The first attack occurred across a WithSecure customer's environment. We run proactive threat hunts across our customer base to look for signs of notable compromise. And in this case, we detected several malicious commands that were being executed through an established implant on the host. We notified the customer about this breach, and about a month later, we noticed an uptick in malicious activity on the same host once again, and also some lateral movement activity to another host. So we notified the customer again, at which point they quickly isolated the hosts. Andariel follows the regime's strategic priorities, and if they are targeting a victim in the public or legal sector in Europe, they can certainly be targeting other victims in the same sector across the globe. The previous and current Andariel activity also highlight that their operations are global in scope. There have been attacks across North America, Asia, and Europe. And on the regime's strategic priorities, those are constantly expanding and evolving, from intellectual property theft to support their missile programs, to curbing the COVID-19 outbreak, to their money laundering activities. The compromise appeared to have occurred almost 80 days before the first set of malicious activity actually happened, which our EDR detected. When we first noticed malicious activity through our EDR detections, we immediately notified the customer. Almost a month later, we saw another uptick in malicious activity on the same host, as well as lateral movement activity to another host. We notified the customer once again, at which point they promptly isolated the hosts. Some cyber espionage activity often take a long time to fully play out. Some reasons for these are, for instance, resource limitations on the threat actor side, for instance, not having enough operators, and also that they might drop an implant, establish persistence on the host, and just forget it until the victim's vertical becomes of strategic interest for the regime, at which point they activate the implant and start their actual post-compromise activity. In the first attack, the most important data that we saw the threat actor exfiltrate were documents related to anti-money laundering. And while we were able to see the post-compromise activity quite well through our EDR telemetry, unfortunately, the victim had only installed our EDR product after they were already compromised. So we could not tell exactly how the threat actor got in the first place. Andariel uses custom malware that are specifically linked to them, such as the Tiger Rat implant. They also reuse parts of their network infrastructure, and these elements, among other technical and non-technical factors, allow us to build up confidence in our attribution. Andariel is linked to North Korea's Reconnaissance General Bureau, specifically the 3rd Bureau, by some of the intelligence and security services. So it is quite natural that cyber espionage is on their table. With Andariel, they can be considered as one of the primary intelligence gathering arms for the regime. For example, when COVID-19 outbreak happened, their focus shifted towards the healthcare and medical research verticals. The North Korean regime is notoriously known for their money laundering activities to evade international sanctions and fund some of their strategic programs, such as their ballistic and nuclear programs. While we are not aware of the exact contents of the documents that they stole, we suspect they are trying to understand how money laundering activity is being detected and how to essentially evade them. Andariel has an arsenal of remote access Trojans, or RATs for short, in their toolbox. and this arsenal is constantly expanding. In our research, we came across 3 vastly different rats that were previously unseen. One was written in Golang, another one was written in C++, and the last one in C# or .NET. These rats also had varying levels of sophistication, with Jealous Rat, in my opinion, being the more sophisticated one. So while the attacks followed similar attack patterns to previous Andariel activity, they are changing up what gets dropped on victim's machine, which can evade existing detection signatures. These tools and TTPs are nothing new to us defenders. We've seen other threat actors abusing Petit Potato and the bring your own vulnerable driver trend. What's worrying is that this trend is on the rise, and that threat actors are constantly evolving their methods to try and kill AV or EDR products. And we need to be on the lookout for new methods that threat actors such as Andariel might come up with to do so. The first attack described in our report was against a European organization. And although Andariel has primarily been active in South Korea, their previous attacks and their latest attack underscore that their operations are global in scope, and they follow the regime's priorities. And certainly part of those priorities are in Europe. Now, Andariel has a history of targeting the financial sector as well as other strategic sectors to the North Korean regime. For example, they have targeted nuclear research facilities, nuclear power plants, energy, biotech, agriculture, government, you name it. So essentially, Andariel follows what the regime's intelligence priorities are at the time. Those lists of priorities change over time. In the cybersecurity industry, we always talk about securing your digital supply chain, and that is once again the case here. In the second attack, Andariel conducted a supply chain type attack. So knowing the software you use, having a baseline to detect when the software starts acting anomalously are essential. Second, we need to be prepared for attacks by threat actors that may not always be targeting Europe. With the case of Andariel, they are quite active in South Korea, but as the regime's priorities evolve over time, we can see operations across Europe. So we need to ensure we can detect their unique malware and activity. And lastly, threat actors, even nation-state actors, do not discriminate. They do not target based on company size or perceived maturity. So we all need to be prepared and have the right cybersecurity hygiene and resilience in place. Now, when it comes to companies and MSPs and what they should take away from this report, as Andariel attacks are primarily orchestrated across endpoints, and it involves the usage of low bins, custom tools, and malware, using solutions such as Endpoint Detection and Response, or EDR for short, as well as Endpoint Protection Platform, or EPP, are quite effective to protect, detect, and respond against these attacks. There is plenty of tactics, techniques, and procedures, or TTPs, as well as indicators of compromise outlined in our report. So we would urge any MSP or company to ensure their EPP or EDR solutions have good detection coverage against them. So Andariel will certainly continue to conduct attacks for the foreseeable future. That is their nature as a nation-state actor. Now, some of their attacks can be considered quite traditional, but given that they have over a decade of experience under their belt and the overall changing landscape when it comes to DPRK, for example, with their shift towards IT worker activities, we can expect Andariel to continue being a major unit under DPRK's cyber program.